Hey there, it's the Hash. Welcome to Friday. Let's do this thing. I am Zack Seward. I am joined by Anna Baydakova, Ben Powers, Jen Sanasie, and Will Foxley, and we have a lot to get to. Let's go to the world of dastardly deeds and blockchain hacks. Ben, what do you got?
Always more dastardly deeds. So Thorchain has experienced yet another hack after experiencing one as well last week, in which the hacker stole about $8 million. So Thorchain told CoinDesk that a hacker deployed a custom contract that was able to trick the Bitfrost protocol into receiving a deposit of fake assets. The network then processed a refund of real assets to the hacker. So Thorchain is seemingly getting hit with hack after hack over the last couple of weeks. But Will, I want your initial take on this one.
Initial take. So there's been a few things that I've been kind of seeing circulate around recently about Thorchain. First of all, I think it's important to note that they're still like in this development stage where they're only slightly progressing towards like a full mainnet launch. On the other hand, there is real asset values that have been just kind of like taken away from the system. So 8 million on the first one, and I don't know how much for this one itself. Something I saw circulating around on Twitter was that there has been notes in the code from over 2 years ago that there was parts of Thorchain that were exploitable and the developers just overlooked it and did not change those pieces of code. They just left them in there, and that's what was exploited. So it's a little frustrating to see that, as always, especially for people who are involved in that ecosystem. You want to put money into a system that works. As we saw with DeFi Summer last summer in 2020, that happened a lot. People were not reviewing the code very well, and those teams got exploited. And I think for like the long run, it's important that you get your foot out the door correctly. Teams like Compound and Aave, who didn't have any exploits, they're the blue chips now, and they're kind of the guys to beat. So interesting to see Thorchain kind of falling prey to the experiences that some of the weaker teams last year faced, and a lot of those teams just aren't around anymore. Their projects aren't as powerful. Gonna throw it down to Zack, though, for your take on this story.
I think I saw Jen's hand go up. Jen, was your hand up on that?
Oh, I missed it.
You missed it. I caught it. I caught that. Come on now.
I missed it.
Well, out here not multitasking. Come on.
Old world, dude.
I'm very focused on myself when I'm talking.
Exactly.
I just off the back of what you were saying, Will, I was reading this morning that the hackers said, do not rush code that controls 9 figures. And this was a warning to the platform, which I thought was quite interesting. I was also reading an interview, I think it was on The Block by Shapeshift CEO Eric Voorhees, who weighed on the $5 million hack. And he compared the platform. He was like, it's like a beta platform that controls a lot of money. So we should expect things like this to happen. Which is interesting because we've talked a lot about DeFi and, you know, figuring out the bugs and it being in the very early stages of development. So I thought that added some perspective here. And it feels like the hackers, you know, they're just trying to do good.
I mean, I think it's funny because Thorchain characterized this as a gray hat hack to CoinDesk, which kind of falls in between that area of a white hat hacker, wherein you kind of disclose the vulnerability to the company or the organization, and they sort of pay you a bug bounty, and a black hat hacker, which, you know, kind of breaks laws, breaks ethical boundaries, just kind of take as much as they can. And in this case, Jen, as you pointed out, the hacker left them a note just saying that there are critical vulnerabilities here. You should not have rolled this thing out that fast. And while I took $8 million, I could have taken much more. So that's where they're kind of falling in the middle of those two spaces, which I found a little bit humorous for a variety of reasons. But I feel like, you know, all of these different hacks, and particularly with this Thorchain one, I feel like I'm becoming like a boomer around cybersecurity, where I'm like, guys, just go really slow. Like, we don't need to rush this out. Do not move fast and let things break. But it's a sad realization to have happened. Zack, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, Thorchain is definitely getting battle tested like previous DeFi platforms before it. There is that, you know, that famous test in prod ethos in the DeFi space, right? That was uttered by Andre Cronje of the Yearn Finance ecosystem, I think last summer. And, you know, DeFi composability makes for innovation that kind of moves at breakneck pace. And I think what we're seeing is just that with this and other projects, right? There's these holes, they've yet to be fully patched. You know, these are still very new networks. And I think it's always good to showcase these stories because they do inform prospective investors that, hey, you know, just be careful now. This stuff is still kind of being worked out. I think gray hat hackers are really masterful term of art on that one, but that is indeed what has happened here, right? These are, there's a community of very savvy coders in this space who are able to do these exploits because these systems aren't entirely fully baked yet. So it's always important to be mindful of some of these risks before, aping into the latest new protocol that, guarantees outsized returns for those who, again, support these protocols from the ground floor. But I'll toss it back to you, Ben.
Yeah, I guess maybe another word for this too is a pick your own bug bounty hack in some ways. But Anna, I want your take on this. What are your thoughts around this?
I wonder if, this game of cat and mouse is actually endless. Like right now, a lot of these protocols are immature. Maybe, the coders could do a better job and so on. But I wonder, all these protocols and market tools are inherently so complicated that is it even possible to make them like invincible, or there will always be this game where there are more sophisticated protocols but also more sophisticated hackers who are looking for ways to game this system and still find way to siphon millions of dollars through some 0-day hole in the liquidity protocol, which nobody noticed before. But a more interesting thing actually to watch, I guess, is how long would it take the regulators, which are, I believe, like many legal experts believe, are already looking at the DeFi space, to actually think like, okay, enough. We got to do something about that, and introduce some really cumbersome rules for this new industry. So I think that that's something interesting to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be interesting when the consumer protection angle comes into this. I'm not sure where it's going to happen yet, but I'm sure there's going to be some calls for that, amongst the regulatory crowd.
Hackers going to hack.
Let's get to some consumer protection. Let's get to the securities regulators. I'll take the next one. You guys ready? All right, let's talk about BlockFi.
Protect me.
BlockFi, big time crypto lender, keeps getting some notices from state regulators that one of the products that they're offering may not be fully kosher. This is their interest account in which depositors put crypto. They're entitled to certain yields, and on the back end, state regulators allege they're not doing it right. The way that they're commingling funds and producing these yields may run afoul of state securities laws. We had a couple scoops yesterday. The one yesterday that we're going to talk about first is about Texas. It's the latest regulator following in the footsteps of New Jersey and Alabama to take a look at this practice and to see if there's anything off here. We ultimately ended up talking to someone from the Alabama securities regulator who said, hey, I think a lot of states are going to take a look at this and see if it runs afoul of their securities laws as well. BlockFi, for their part, they maintain that this is a lawful product, and they intend to hopefully get some clarity and some closure from this wave of state regulators who are getting in touch with them over the course of this week. I'm going to toss this right to Will. BlockFi, big-time crypto lender in the space, seems to be drawing the attention of regulators in a serious way. What's your take on this?
Yeah, for sure. I think in general, it kind of speaks to a few points. First of all, like the state versus federal level of regulation is interesting, where you have New Jersey, you have Texas, you have Alabama coming out of the woodwork to levy some accusations against BlockFi. Will the federal government also come out later and have their own accusations against the company, or will they have their own opinions about the product that BlockFi is using, the SEC specifically there? Or will more states come out, or will just kind of stay the same with those three current states? So that's interesting in and of itself. It's also interesting because BlockFi is perhaps one of the best brands in crypto so far. The fact, like a lot of Americans have Bitcoin at this point. They do. Like there's been some surveys out there showing like at least 30% or more of Americans have some sort of like financial allocation towards Bitcoin, even if it's just a little bit. And BlockFi allows anyone to earn interest on that Bitcoin, which I think for the pet rock theory of Bitcoin, like they have an answer for that. They have a solution for that. You can earn interest on it and make Bitcoin even more of a savings vehicle. And so I know that, just speaking from a lot of people who are just tangential to the space or like kind of in the greater ecosystem, they know about BlockFi, they care about BlockFi, and they use BlockFi. And to see one of the more bellwether companies in this space, even though it's young, to get this kind of legislation or these actions against it, it's not great for where we're at in the bull market, in my opinion. I think it speaks to just more of what's coming down the pipeline, and then also where we're at right now in terms of Bitcoin's price. I think that we haven't quite priced in all the regulatory actions that are to come. Notably, this also comes after the DeFi and stablecoin rhetoric coming out of the US federal government. So there's a lot going on the regulatory front, and I think it's just more to come over the next 6 months as we close out the year.
Can we just note that like New Jersey and Alabama and Texas are not traditionally bedfellows in some of these things? I thought that was a really interesting mix in terms of Alabama and Texas kind of following suit on this one. I do think it's a little bit of the case to kind of follow the leader. Like once one state kind of takes action against a company, particularly because BlockFi is headquartered in New Jersey, I think that other states find it a little bit easier to follow suit and maybe follow some of the language that initial securities sort of cease and desist came out with. We should note that a judge has not signed off on the Texas cease and desist. That still has to happen before that kind of goes to the next phase in this regard. And I also think another interesting note about that one in particular is we got some stats out of this in terms of adoption around BlockFi and who's being involved. I believe there were about 25,000 residents in Texas with almost 690 million in assets on the platform. And to me, that could be another kind of interesting outpouring of this is we're going to get, some more transparency into how the company's functioning, what's actually going on behind the scenes in a way that we've not yet previously.
Yeah, and the timing here is really unfortunate for BlockFi. We did a little reporting yesterday as well. They are supposedly days away from closing their Series E round, which would bring in $500 million of venture capital, something like a $4.75 billion valuation. And in investor materials seen by CoinDesk, plans for going public within 12 to 18 months are on the table. So for this to be in the works, for them to be hit with these notices from various states, unfortunate timing on their part, but certainly facilitating a lot of interesting conversations on the regulatory front. Jen, take it away.
We should just call this the regulatory domino effect. I feel like once one regulator does something, we see the other ones kind of just pop up and copy them. But what I liked about this, the one little gold nugget for me is that they're being given the opportunity to respond and present evidence against the claims. I think they have until October, so that gives them some time to defend themselves. I don't think that we saw that in New Jersey. I think they were told to immediately stop offering the service in New Jersey. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. So I thought that was the one little gold nugget for them in this.
So they can't onboard new clients in New Jersey, but existing services are not going to be disrupted at the current time.
Okay, perfect.
Going to be an interesting one to watch, especially if the guy in Alabama who said that other states are looking at BlockFi, especially if that comes to pass, should be an interesting one. All right, we are going to take a break. When we get back from that break, we are going to go check out Reddit. They have these Ethereum-based community points, and they need some scaling technology to make that stuff mainstream ready. We're going to talk about who they picked and why after the break. Stick with us. It's The Hash.
Okay, now to some news from the IRS. The IRS clarified the... good news, actually. The IRS clarified the language of the individual tax form. So now it's easier for the US taxpayers to understand if they did anything taxable with their crypto. So the IRS actually only changed one word, but that's an important word. So previously it was, did you receive, sell, send, exchange, or otherwise acquire any financial interest in any virtual currency? Now it's, did you receive, sell, exchange, or otherwise dispose of any financial interest in any virtual currency? So basically now there is no more question if just buying crypto or say like moving it from an exchange to a private wallet would be a taxable event. It looks like it won't be. It looks like just a small step, but it's just another step in what the IRS has been doing in the crypto area recently. And the agency has been after crypto since 2014, but now it really beefed up its work trying to prevent tax avoidance here. In June, the IRS requested additional funding, $32 million, so that it can better prevent cryptocurrency tax evasion. And in May, Robert Weirin, Deputy Associate Chief Counsel at the IRS, said during a virtual conference that crypto can be seized as a property if the owner failed to pay its taxes. So really strong taxman vibes here. I wonder, what do you guys think? Do you applaud to the relentless work here?
They're trying to incentivize hodling. Is that what's going on here? Well, love me some IRS stories. I don't know if this is true, but I'm going to say it anyway. No. So the IRS brought on TaxBit. That part is true. So there's all these like crypto tax services in the industry now. TaxBit among them. I think like Token Tax is another service, etc. So the IRS signed a contract with TaxBit where they would like audit some of the crypto stuff, and then also like provide, I guess, some insight and some consulting. So I'm wondering if there was like, if they had a hand in this at all, or if this had been in the works already. But yeah, any degree of clarity is appreciated. It's still like pretty fine print style. I don't know, dispose. So maybe we can simplify even further.
If I lose my keys, that I don't have to pay taxes on it, right?
Is that the boating accident meme? Is that the
definition for
I don't even know.
Exposed in a boating accident.
Yes, boating accident. Yep. But yeah, sure. Good to see the IRS thinking about this stuff a bit more clearly, and any more certainty and or ease of use around crypto taxation, I think, would certainly facilitate the payments use case of crypto and potentially the investment use case even further. So those are my takes. Will, are you going on a boat trip as it relates to this?
I don't go on boats anymore. I lost all my crypto on it. Too sad.
Oh, bummer.
Bummer. But we should all be excited about this. This is the power of editorial language, right? You change one word and it changes everything.
Love it.
I think, I know. Let's really get into this. No. So like in terms of, what was it for? Like acquire virtual currency versus dispose, that's totally different language. I had a lot of people asking me over the last few years, like, if I just buy Bitcoin, do I have to report that? Well, this statement's making it very simple. No, you don't have to. If you sold it, you do. Or if you dispose of it, somehow you do. Interesting part that's not included is information about hard forks or airdrops still. And there has been some guidance on that in the past, but it's still quite unclear. If there's a million hard forks of Bitcoin, which there have been, how do I assess the tax situation for that, even if I'd never claimed those alternate Bitcoin knockoffs? A lot of people in like the Bitcoin Cash hard fork or the Bitcoin SV hard fork refuse to touch those assets. But in a sense, you can maybe owe taxes on them because the guidance is so unclear. So it'd be great if there was more guidance on that going forward. But that's all I got to say.
One step at a time, Will. One step at a time. We got the word change.
The pace is like, they said this in March, right? They said that like acquiring stuff doesn't require tax disclosure. And now 4 months later, they like got the word
one word every
over
4 months.
The finish line. One word every 4 months. We'll get there by 2032. It'll be sweet. Anyway,
we all need
that is our rate of change. We do. Well, I'm going to move us over to Reddit really quick.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about Reddit. So Reddit is obviously a huge social media platform. A lot of crypto talk used to live there. Now it's on Twitter. God bless. But that hasn't stopped Reddit from having cryptocurrency aspirations, particularly for its little social points, so like upvote, downvote, whatnot, or even like I forget what you call them, like on Reddit, it's like awards or rewards or something when you're doing well and like your posts are getting clicks. Well, Reddit wants to make that an actual cryptocurrency of sorts by placing it on the Ethereum blockchain. So just for some context, this project has been going on for like 2 to 3 years. They've been trying to work with Ethereum, even the Ethereum Foundation, to get this project off its feet. It wasn't working. Why? Mainly because Ethereum's tech stack wasn't there yet, but now they think it could be. They did a lot of testing on multiple layer 2 projects over the last year, and they decided that Arbitrum, which I think is a zero knowledge proof rollup, but maybe it's an optimistic rollup, which we won't get into those details here. But essentially allows you to have more transactions on the Ethereum mainnet, where you can have like thousands of transactions per second, as opposed to like 25 Ethereum is at right now. It's interesting that this project itself took about 9 months longer than they thought. So they rolled out this idea for like a little testing scheme for all these layer 2 solutions last summer, and it was supposed to conclude in September 2020. Then it went blank. No one heard anything about it. And now we have a little announcement, so that's great. Arbitrum's interesting. They touted the decentralization of that network and the usability of it. Those are things that are still in question. I just seen some reports about Arbitrum is basically controlled still only by the foundation that has launched it. So interesting to see if that decentralization continues or if that's something that's of note for them. Zach, I'm going to throw this right back to you for your take on it. I don't understand the cryptocurrency angle on any of these things for social media, but maybe you have a different opinion.
Well, so they've been testing it out. They've been testing out in the Fortnite subreddit and one of the cryptocurrency subreddits. And the idea is that you can have tokens that exist, outside of Reddit. Hopefully one day, right? You get these points. They're of value to you beyond just shit posting in Reddit. So that's the idea, right? But again, Ethereum at present, isn't able to handle that capacity of like millions of Redditors. So this is what the scaling thing is about. I think stepping back, like scaling on Ethereum has become really interesting in the last 6 months or so to me. I think, it's definitely, the writing is on the wall that like scaling solutions will be needed to get Ethereum over the finish line to its proof of stake Ethereum 2.0 overhaul at some point in the hopefully near future. So there's been a lot of really interesting developments in the scaling space, be that on Polygon's Matic network, be that Arbitrum, be that Optimism. There's all these contenders who are looking for ways to make Ethereum more robust in terms of supporting smaller and more high volume of transactions. So the fact that Arbitrum got the nod here, I think is really quite interesting. Seems to be a vote of confidence from Reddit after they kicked the tires. I think something like 21 options for how they would go about doing this. But I'm gonna toss it to Ben. He reported the story. I thought he did a good job with it. What stood out to you, Ben?
Yeah, I think there were a couple of different things that stood out to me beyond kind of Arbitrum winning out over like Matic Network, over like, Polygon or Solana and some others, which is noteworthy because these are being adopted all over the place and people are kind of, putting their foot in one camp, and we're seeing how that goes. But so Reddit's also supposedly hiring an engineer to kind of further out the building of like a decentralized Reddit. There's not a job posting that I've seen for that, but that was according to not only the blog post, but a Reddit spokesperson. And we should note that like Alex Ohanian, one of the co-founders of Reddit, this is kind of old hat for him. He has a VC that's been investing in a ton of different decentralized projects, and he's putting money where his mouth is in terms of thinking about how this can move forward. And so I'm curious about the ways this is going to continue to develop, and also how much traction this gets in terms of Redditors using this. I mean, these points can be used for like you mentioned, like quality comments and other things like that, and then can be used to spend supposedly on like gifts or like emoticons or other things like that are kind of unique. And so maybe we'll see like some little like NFT-dom aspect there in the future. I'm not sure. I'm not like reporting that. I'm just curious, but that seems to be maybe a value add that they could go into, this being Ethereum based and having, the ability now, if this L2 solution works, for like a high level of transactions with low gas fees, which is the whole overall goal here. But those are some tidbits that stuck out to me in terms of reporting this out. But Jen, I'll hand it to you.
I was just going to ask you, Ben, it's prediction time for me. Do you feel, since you reported on this story, that this is the future of social media? Can this model be applied to the Instagrams and Facebooks and Twitters? And do you think we're going in that direction? Or do you think this is something that we'll maybe see in a decentralized social world?
I want to go way back to the only prediction I made on the show relative to price point, and that was Bitcoin's price point. Initially, way back when months ago, I called it peaking at about 60,000. So,
Wow.
Got that a little bit right. But in terms of this one, I don't see this being the future. I see this being an option. I think that nothing is going to be like a monolithic, like standalone. This is the future of anything, particularly in regards to decentralization, which by its own name kind of avoids monolithic solutions. I think that there's going to continue to be like the Twitters of the world. There's going to be Instagram. It's just kind of like what people want out of it and where they go. I could see particularly with people using crypto being really interested in being incentivized and rewarded for using that social media. That is kind of the whole ethos of crypto, is like how do I make more money? And so that could be of interest to them, but I don't think you're going to see somebody like Facebook adopt this anytime soon in that regard.
Yeah, you could see momentum around like social tokens too, right? Like there's a lot of Discord communities that are pretty poppin', a lot of Twitch streamers who give out little online doohickeys to their fans. If there was a way to make that value transferable, again, outside of those little individual sub communities, could be really interesting. If it's something like community points with what Red is doing, if it's something with social tokens that can be ported over to whichever Discord community you tend to spend your time in, it's interesting to think about gaming this stuff out. But I'll toss it to Will. I know he's an avid Twitch streamer at all times.
Reddit user.
No, this kind of ties well into our next topic. But this last week, ETHCC was in Paris, like a big Ethereum conference, and Vitalik went on stage and said, we need to think more than about just DeFi, which is notable for a few reasons. I think, first of all, in his talk, he was talking about social media. We need to make ways for that, for Ethereum to be like the base layer for any sort of social conversation where you can kind of like route articles and all that back into the Ethereum ecosystem. And that kind of ties into this multi-chain future idea where a lot of people are looking at like, well, Ethereum's too expensive. We'll just use it for finance and we'll use this other chain for luxury goods, or we'll use this other chain for NFTs, stuff like that. But Ethereum wants the whole pie, or at least Vitalik wants the whole pie. So we'll see if like the technology stack can handle that. Right now, it definitely can't, but maybe if projects like this Arbitrum thing can. But that segues, I think, well into Solana here, where they are raising money to kind of work on that topic.
It's a good segue there, Will. No.
Okay. All right. Take it. Let's rapidly move into the next thing.
I'm taking it and then taking us home.
Yes.
All right.
Sorry, man.
Solana hopes to attract creators with a $5 million fund for artists and musicians. So it's the Solana Foundation. They've partnered with streaming service Audius and NFT marketplace Metaplex to entice creators to start exploring the world of Web3. So it's important to note that no creators have been onboarded yet, but there is $5 million at stake, and the amount of money and the amount of support you get varies project to project. So this is really interesting. We've spoken about a lot of use cases for Web3 and creators on this show before. Here we have Solana trying to entice creators with money, the best way to entice anyone, I think, to explore the glories of Web3. Ben, I'll pass it right on down to you since I just cut you off for your take on this story.
No, the only thing I was going to mention is that regard in terms of like the cross-chain future and stuff, like Will, like you were kind of alluding to, like we should note that like Thorchain is a DeFi platform, but is also involved in like trying to move assets cross-chain and was a big part of that sort of conversation. And yet it's undergoing hacks. So, while that's promising, there's still a long way and a lot of pitfalls to go. But in relation to Solana, I think this is very much a case of like, let's build it and see if they'll come. Because right now there are currently no creators onboarded onto this, which I thought was of note. And certainly, this kind of predates them actually onboarding it. But we'll see. It's a sizable pot of money. I think, again, as you mentioned, Jen, like money is the incentive here. And like, particularly in a world where like musicians and artists and others are kind of getting cut out of a lot of sort of monolithic, like the Spotifys of the world, there seems to be opportunity for them to be compensated. We see like people ditching record labels because that was a whole corrupt industry for a long time that cut artists out and bought the rights to their music and all these other things. So there seems to be an offering here. I've yet to see a place that does it super well. Like there's been a lot of projects that have tried to. So we'll see if this is the one. And in relation to like L2 solutions, I think that will make it more interesting in terms of things like microtransactions and the like.
Just to grab that really quick, I don't. This $5 million is not that much. Like, how much did people raise?
I will.
In his
Demo me
$69 million and one
maybe.
NFT. For artists, perhaps, yeah,
artists
but like
are starving.
Well, Solana raised $314 million in June for their company to get to scale out the project. So I'm not saying Solana's like, I'm not saying anything about them, but it's like not a big pot of money compared to what we've seen in the NFT space. So that doesn't seem very alluring in and of itself. Also interesting to see Audius kind of being looped in here. As far as I understood it, they were very pro Ethereum. So I'm wondering if there's like a little splintering there, or maybe I'm just entirely wrong. Zach can get me on that.
They've been building a lot of their tech stack on Solana. I think in like the last 6 months or so. So they started off on Ethereum, but then they're like, hey, we can do a lot of this stuff on Solana. It's going to be faster. It's going to be cheaper. It's going to serve our needs better. And I think it goes to what you were saying before, Will. It's like, I'm of the view that if Ethereum captured DeFi, that would be plenty, right? There are other views there. There are views that it should be DeFi and more. But I think these chains might find ways to specialize, and it's interesting to see, even though it is a small financial commitment, it's interesting to see these programs looking to support that activity, right? Hey, musician, hey, SoundCloud star, we want to help you monetize your direct relationship with your fans, and we can give you a little bit of money and a little bit of tech help. And we think we can make this work for you on the Solana blockchain as opposed to some other network. So to me, that's sort of the big picture. And I think it's going to be interesting to see, again, if anyone takes them up on it, it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of this experiment. Jen, what do you got?
Yeah, we talk about crypto and blockchain solutions for non-crypto and blockchain native people a lot, especially when we talk about marketplaces for creators and when we talk about NFTs. And Audius has really dabbled in that with their offering for musicians, allowing them a way to display their NFTs to their non-crypto native fans. I want to ask Anna, what do you think it's going to take to get non-crypto people to start using these platforms to interact with their favorite artists and even non-crypto artists?
Well, that's the trickiest question, I guess, because it's not enough to just get the creators to get there. You need their audience to go there for some reason, and that audience doesn't care about blockchains or crypto that much. I guess they care if it's if it's convenient and cool thing to use, and if they really enjoy the experience of listening or watching their artists on that platform. So the user experience will be the key, I guess, and that's something not the artists, but the developers who will be working on those dApps on Solana have to think about. I also wonder if the NFT art market is such a huge thing still. Is it looks kind of quiet to me recently, but maybe I'm wrong.
For another day, we will talk about some NFTs, I'm sure.
Private keys
soon.
for streaming each song.
Hey, it's the weekend now, so let's hang out.
Yay.
That's going to be it for the show today. It was our Friday show. Thanks for sticking with us. That's Ben. Oh yeah, you just did it. You just did the Daniel Craig thing. All right, when I end, say that and do it again. Okay.
Okay.
So we have me, Zach. We have Anna, who's filling in capably for us from Russia. Thank you, Anna. We have Will. We have Jen, and we have Ben. Thanks for watching The Hash this week. Have a good one.
Ladies and gentlemen, the weekend.
Nailed it.